So funny. Okay. All right, and take two. We are going to discuss Julie Bailing's new documentary, the trailer, which is called Beneath Sheep's Clothing. Really, really excited. You might see some familiar faces in this video and some young actors. And the way that she started her story was she decided she wrote a book. As soon as she finished the book, she put her head down, and when she thought, oh, after 10 years of writing this book, I'm done. I've done what I was supposed to do. And when she went to sleep, she started seeing it in video format. She had no idea how video format was going to come to fruition, because she's a single mom, and everything's fallen into place. So I'm super excited. So Brooke is here with me, and Christine is here, and Brooke's daughter is here. So I don't know if we want to say her name, so we won't. But I hope you guys enjoy.
So here's the thing about communism. When it comes knocking at your door, it doesn't say, hi, I'm here to impoverish, enslave, and murder you. It says, I'm here to liberate you from oppression.
I thought of myself as a happy kid. I was going to school, I was playing. And I had no idea that I was being brainwashed.
Communism is like an international cancer. It must spread to survive. And
This is Trevor
America
Loudon. You
was
wanna
the
pause it?
major impediment.
So the first person who was speaking, she's moved here from Russia, and she knows Julie, and she started to become pretty concerned about what was going on and how she was seeing the parallels between exactly how she was raised in Russia and what's going on in our schools today. Trevor Loudon is one of the foremost voices on the infiltration in our churches. So yeah, you guys have any thoughts so far?
Well, I mean, it's powerful to see that. And I think starting it off right off the bat, because I think people picture communism as something that just kind of comes in very overtly, and it's actually a very covert operation. So laying that out immediately, I think is something that really perks up my ears, and I'm sure it will for the people that are going to watch this. That's how we need to understand it, without we look around and don't see it on the surface. We need to understand the insidiousness of it under the surface.
Right. Brooke, you want to keep going?
Yeah.
To the spread of this disease. They knew right from the start that America could not be taken from the outside. It had to be taken from the inside.
They infiltrated
bold she
America's
was to
media
actually
and
put it-
education.
Barack Obama.
He said the ultimate objective of having government school was to destroy Christianity. Those are his words.
But unfortunately, we have utterly red-washed education, so we don't know what creeping communism looks like.
I don't like the idea of teaching children that they're victims.
There she is.
So we're undermining the family unit by saying that it's destructive to have any sort of heteronormative society.
Just affirm it, or else we're going to take your kids away.
And they say, well, no, that's not communism. It's Democrat socialism. It's just dog do. Put sprinkles on top of it. It's the same thing.
It was probably the most extreme version of communism. They separated children
she's from an
their
organization
parents.
called Mom
If you ever
Army.
want to take over a country, you indoctrinate the children. I just can't sit here and do nothing. This is the hill I'm going to die on.
They say that that's why we will take you to prison, because
This is the
you're
gulag.
teaching your children about God and you don't follow our indoctrination.
Just like in the Soviet Union, in America, we have seen heavy attacks on fringe Christian groups.
And I hate to use that phrase, the final solution, because that's what Hitler's Germany used for justify the killing of all the Jews.
But that's what they called it.
Overall, there were 76 deaths of men, women, and children.
And the real target is mainstream Christianity. But by attacking the fringes, you intimidate everybody else.
The Soviets infiltrated the mainstream churches.
All their the top clergy, yes, they are working for the government, and even some of them is appointed by the government.
So the KGB agents would go into his church and then rise up.
That's right. All of them is infiltrated.
Similarly, America's churches have been infiltrated.
So the American communists started infiltrating the churches right from the start.
There are ravening wolves in sheep's clothing all over the place. They agree with Marx. So religion is the opiate of the masses, and the masses are going to need some opium because they're going to get put through some unpleasant experiences. Their liberty is going to be taken away from them.
What can we do?
You know, get involved, do what you can. There is no time for complacency.
We're only going to be saved by telling the truth. Telling the truth takes courage. Courage is proof of faith.
I don't belong here.
All right, Miss Naomi, so that you can get back to having a movie with your dad. What did you think of the trailer?
I like it. I want to watch it, but I can't because it has.
I don't know
stuff.
the timestamps of the really graphic stuff. She ran away when baby Jesus was being killed in the Nativity movie. So
Okay.
she's extra sensitive about. Do you remember we were watching the Nativity movie? And it was really hard for you when the little babies were being killed. We didn't see it,
That's
but
awful.
she's
Right,
very
yeah.
sensitive. So I'm gonna watch it first and then
Yeah.
I'll like find the timestamps and take it out. But
There you go.
but I
Tell us
think
what your experience was. Sorry, go ahead. What was your experience when you went and did the filming?
how did you feel when you were in that classroom with all the kids and the teacher was showing you the to have the pronouns and CRT?
I felt uncomfortable, all that.
Even though
Why?
you made a mistake.
Yeah. Well, like everybody's like trying to like they're like spreading like rainbow flags everywhere so they can win and like we can just go down.
Yeah,
Like
the rainbows. Yeah, that's good. The rainbow flags, just because she knows that it's, they shouldn't be, I've taught her not to
Right.
put it on kids, that
Right.
it's really not a label that children should be taking. When you're 18, you might have a little bit more experience to determine, and dispositions shouldn't determine identity, especially so young, because our dispositions aren't necessarily tied to our orientation, right? Behavior or personality or cultural things. And so I've taught her, if people are trying to push it on kids, it's really wrong. And so every time she sees those flags, and the classroom and the thing was really covered with all those flags, she feels uncomfortable. And I try to, say, we're working through, children are very black and white thinkers. And
Right. When you were doing it, how did you feel about, like, did you know what was going on, or did they just take certain clips and just tell you to look a certain way at this certain time? Or did they actually pretend that the teacher was teaching?
They pretended.
Yeah, they pretended. But yeah, so today when I was at school,
Well, let's just talk about the
Okay.
movie first. I don't know what you're gonna say. So,
So what
but
happened in the
we'll
movie?
talk
Tell me. Tell me what happened when you went there. Did you make a bunch of new friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were really close with the main character, huh?
Yeah.
We got to have a sleepover the night before. Hey, sit up because
Oh,
I can't see your face.
fun.
And so we got to actually she slept in the same room with as the main character, and they were laughing a lot, and so they
Oh, how
had fun.
fun.
But the whole thing was they were reenacting it. The teacher was teaching and they were taking pictures as if it was a classroom. It wasn't stop and pretend this. They were
Oh.
fully in the experience in the moment. And
So what was that? What did you do in that experience? Do you remember?
I just looked like that. I don't know.
it was hard for her. You had to take a break. There was a
Yeah.
part where they were talking about how special she was because she's Black, and because that's who's being brought out and
Right.
glorified. And it's whoever's on the wheel is getting the power and the glorification. It's really
Yeah.
backwards. And so she was feeling really uncomfortable for that reason as well, and singled out.
Do you
And-
like to be singled out? Do you like to be like told that you're the most special person and everybody should think about how special you are?
Yeah.
in some ways.
In some ways, right? But in
Right.
that situation within the classroom, was that awkward or
It was awkward.
it was awkward?
Mhm.
How
It
do you know?
feels real.
Can you explain why or no?
Well, Black people shouldn't be the most important. It doesn't matter what skin you have.
Yeah,
That's very smart.
yeah. Was the whole thing like that, or did they change and find other people who were important, or were you the only one who got to be important
I think they found other people, but
They
for other
did.
reasons?
They were putting flags around them and celebrating them if they wanted
Okay.
those flags. Just get up. She's
Yeah,
a chair that goes up and down. Sorry.
that's totally fine. That's totally fine. So would you like that to be regular school?
no.
No. Is regular school ever like that?
Well, I can't do these tests because they do a state test that goes into the state.
Uh-huh.
So
So she feels picked on because I opt her out of all of the tests.
Oh.
And so everybody else gets to do it for her because her mom is opting out. So I don't know how.
when I was at school today,
Okay, I don't know what she's.
Mom,
Just a second.
it's about
I know, but let's talk about it first because I don't know what you're gonna say.
What did you think? Did you have any thoughts so far in the movie, Christine?
I think the parts that show the kids are very powerful. So I'm really glad that Naomi, one of our stars, Naomi, right? Yes, is here because I think that it's very powerful to hear from the young ones.
Yeah.
I think people would be shocked at how much this, ideology is rubbing off on young kids and that they are taking it in. And I think that there's definitely a misunderstanding about that. I think people think these are such complex ideas that are only affecting, the older kids or the college students, but the fact that it's trickled down and that Naomi can sit here and tell us exactly what they say and how uncomfortable that is should give people pause when they think about, our children and the fact that they're picking up on so much more than what people give them credit for.
So Naomi, I'm gonna let her say what she was gonna say because I know.
Okay, go ahead.
So today when I was at school, I felt so comfortable because so we have ground duties on our.
Okay, don't say who it is.
I know.
Okay.
So today while I was at recess, I was running, and then when I saw her, she was wearing these rainbow socks and then this pin that said you were safe with me. With a rainbow pin. Said you were safe with me.
A kid was wearing that?
No, the teacher, the employee of this school. And so because we talked about it, and like, you don't get to label yourself, or I mean, labeling yourself or other kids prematurely, you get to be you, however that manifests. That's what we talk about in our home.
Yeah.
So you get to, so Naomi can dress however she wants to dress. She can play sports with the boys at recess.
Yep.
You know, her brother can sing and dance all day if he wants, and he is still a boy and she is still a girl, and they get to be who they are, and they don't have to take on labels because they're exactly who they need to be. And so we talk about you know, how the culture wants them to take on these labels that are damaging to their developing their identity, and their identity in our family comes from God and from the family, and who they're learning who to be and who they're creating themselves to be. And so, sorry, we have a filter because we have a messy room. And so when they're pushing these identities by socks and a pin that says you're safe with me in an elementary school, she knows that I have taught her that that's not okay. And so it makes her uncomfortable, which makes me sad, because then we have a conversation and we say people get to have their opinions and people get to choose what they want. We're in America and we respect and love all people, even if they're pushing it on. So it's hard to find that balance, especially with kids, because she could wear rainbow socks, right?
No,
Like,
I wouldn't.
well, I don't know. I don't know where the line
I would
is
wear
there.
rainbow socks.
Got me because
Yes.
Dante was
Okay.
saying.
shh.
Okay.
I would wear rainbow socks because I think they're kind of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
But the
but
connotation now.
exactly.
It's
It's
what
more
you're-
the pin. It's the pin that would
It's the
concern me.
pin that says
The
you're
pin.
safe with me. The message is very clear. I mean, she
Right.
knows exactly what she's saying. So together with that button,
Yeah.
um,
Which is sad, because kids should be completely carefree and not having to think about these things.
yeah,
Naomi-
schools should not be pushing identity. So
Right.
Mhm.
I
And-
so appreciate. Go ahead. What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
Yes.
Well,
okay. Oh, so this is another thing from the movie.
okay. Go ahead.
So
Yes.
what they're trying to do is trying to get the American flag out,
American flag out.
and trying to get the rainbow flag, because they don't want us to be American. They want us to be that transgender.
They want us to identify,
Yeah.
yes, with their ideology.
Yeah.
What do you think of America?
America's hard, tough, but also great. I'd rather be living here than in Russia and Ukraine and China.
We've been reading all of the historical novels about communism and fascism.
And Germany.
And Germany.
And Germany, right?
We
Yep.
made something from Germany, a punch ski. It's like a donut, but you put jam in the middle.
Yeah.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
We were reading about the Warsaw Ghetto, and now
Wow.
we're reading about World War I. But we're learning all about how our freedom can be taken away, so she can
Yeah.
identify this. So
Right.
mhm.
Well, Naomi, you're beautiful. Every time you smile into the camera, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like a little model. You're so beautiful and clever and smart and wonderful and capable.
Yeah.
And I think it was brave of you to be in that film that's going to be seen by so many people all over the country. And hopefully it'll be
Globally.
like on everyone's shelf. That's my hope.
I want my friends to see it, and then I'll say, aha, I am in a movie. See, you're not.
Once they once they
believe you.
timestamp it,
Yeah.
once they timestamp it, I bet you can do that. Maybe you can have a bunch of friends over and their parents
Yeah.
for a pizza
Watch
maybe.
party. Mhm.
Maybe it's a big maybe.
I'll
It's
do
up to
it.
your mom, which
I'll
I'm
do
not.
it. One can do it. Yep, she said yes, I could do it.
Oh yeah, we'll do
Well,
it.
thank
That's
you. You
gonna
can
be
go
fun.
watch if you want to. If you don't want to watch, unless you want to watch the rest with us, but if not, thanks.
Yeah.
Mhm. You both
Awesome.
are wonderful women.
Oh, thank
You're an
you.
amazing, amazing young lady. Okay.
So it's
Brooke, you're doing such an amazing job with her, I have to say. And when I think about, and I talk about this a lot on when we talk about this topic, the parents getting involved, and not just, getting involved at the board level, but getting involved even in your own home. That's exactly what I picture. So you kind of encapsulate what I picture my mind to be the way to kind of, how do we combat this? So I just want to give you kudos for that.
Thank you. It's been hard because I really want to teach them to love everyone no matter what, and everyone gets freedom of speech. But their black and white thinking is really difficult for them to say this is wrong, and but there's still a person that can be respected and loved, and that's hard to teach. And I've tried to model it. I think, but you just keep trying. So
that's incredible. I mean, most adults can't do that. So the fact that you're teaching your daughter or your children to be able to do that's pretty amazing. Most of us can't. We have a hard time. Cognitive dissonance, we can't reconcile those two things. So I think that's amazing. The struggle's real. It is tough.
Yeah, but it's the only thing that will resolve this conflict. We have to continue to respect and love each other with our differences, because that's what America is based on. And that's what they're coming at us with, is hate those who don't believe the same you do. Call them bigots if they don't believe the same thing you do.
Yep.
And their name calling is the antithesis of America. And they're, so they're killing us with their division. And anyway, so we can only come at it from that angle in order for it to persist and exist.
I also come at it when I look at these people as, yes, I think that they're so sick that they don't realize that they're literally turning into what they're calling us. So when you watch the film and you watch the way that that little girl, when she's in Russia, is treated, you see that her peers, they don't treat her very well. I don't want to ruin the movie, but they don't treat her very well. And they think that they're righteous in those behaviors. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. It's really scary because it's coming top down. If you listen to the president talk, I mean, he's really painting us as pariahs, as our school boards and the NEA and all of these different groups, because we want to protect our kids, because we think that letting them grow and flourish and become, as you said, who they want to be, versus thrown into a box of who they must be, is a healthier option. So that is a really hard thing. It's hard to watch that they're targeting these small kids, that they're targeting those elementary school age kids. But I think that when we look at these people, we have to look at them with the whole, they know not what they do. Part of what I see is Munchausen. So some strange form of it where I am better, I am absolved, I am wonderful, I am thoughtful because I am the safe place. Meanwhile, the kids don't feel safe. It makes them feel uncomfortable. It makes them feel like there's somebody who would harm me. When they see those pins, some of us know, and we have to, and it's so hard that we have to tell our children that they could be in harm's way if they know these people, if they spend too much time with these people.
Yeah.
So, but it's true, because anybody who will take you away from your loving family and tell you that they're more significant, they should be more significant in your life than your loving family.
That's the insidiousness of cults. And that's why I think I've come to label this way of thinking and this ideology as cult formation, cult thinking, because that's how people do it. That's the way you grab the vulnerability where you can find it. It's like grooming children. And I used to teach, courses on, when I was a professor, And, you know, that was one of the biggest things. A lot of the time when these kids are being abused, it's by somebody that's very close to them that teaches them or tries to teach them that what they're doing is loving and that what they're doing. And so you're taking this vulnerable child who's looking to this adult, and the adult is saying, this is what you need to do to be lovable. And this is what you need to do to, you know, be accepted and to do good things and to make me feel loved and to make others feel loved. So it reminds me of how we're supposed to be on the lookout for that when it comes to sexual abuse. But at the end of the day, this is not just about that. It's a sweeping kind of way of drawing anyone in when they're in their most vulnerable state. And kids are always going to be in a much more vulnerable place than adults. That's just where they're going to be.
And
Yeah.
the
Go ahead.
Bad enough with adults, let alone the kids.
The hard part with that is, I not only opt them out of all the testing because I don't want education to be teach to the test mentality. I'm opposed to that. So I think teachers should have autonomy in deciding what they're going to teach. Of course, not for indoctrination purposes,
Sure.
but I also opt them out of all of the SEL stuff. So even if they say this is a life skills class, so this was just this week that I was emailing the teacher, and she said, hey, it's a life skills class. And I'm like, yeah, I previewed it 2 years ago, read the whole thing. Here's my write-up. This is why I don't like it. The family is only mentioned negatively. The kids are supposed to decide who they're, and this is a positive one. This is one of the best ones. The kids are supposed to decide who their safe people are. They have to decide what feels right. And I'm like, that's why my kids will not go to this. But as far as the cult thinking goes, my child is excluded. And she feels that deeply every time. Mom, why can't I go with the rest of the kids to hear this class? They're teaching about not to do drugs. Yes, they are. But I've also read the other lessons, and most of them are good. But she's excluded. So this cult of even coming into the class, and they're very understanding and kind to her. They give her other activities. I opt out of everything. They're respectful of me and my wishes. They're respectful of her. But the fact that they're having this and her sense of exclusion, and I teach her it's communistic to go because they're talking about feelings in there. They're discussing things where if you don't agree, and not necessarily that the teacher's going to do this, but it leads to group think because nobody wants to be different. And she's different. She's sitting out.
Right.
And
on top of that, Brooke, and I hate to say this, but they're going to use, oh, poor you. If only you had parents who would let you come.
I don't know that. And because the teacher is, I believe the principal and the teacher is very supportive. They're very aware of how I stand. I communicate it frequently and respectfully. And so I think they're just doing what they have to do, what the district has told them what they have to do. I've never asked them personally what they want, and I don't know how they would answer. So I'm not going to assume, what their personal feelings are around that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, when I actually resigned from my position as a professor and I was having my exit interview, I was very honest about why I was leaving. And the answer from the professor, from the provost was, or the dean, I guess, was, there are a lot of other instructors who feel how you feel, but we just don't know what else to do. So we're going along with this. Those were his exact words. I wish I had recorded it. I don't know if it was, if I could have ever released it publicly, if that would have gotten me into trouble, but I really had wished that I had done that because that was the answer. So that struck a chord when you said you're not even sure if the teachers themselves all are on board.
Well, and I can't get other parents to do it. I'll send it over to them. I'll be like, guess what book was in the classroom? And I'll send them the excerpts. Crickets. Nobody wants to make waves. And I'm just like, but this is your kid.
Do you think that they don't want to make waves? And this is just to you guys, but do you think that they don't want to make waves because they don't want the kids to get bullied in the classroom or be treated differently or graded differently? Because this is something I've also heard from some friend parents of mine, that they're worried the kids are going to be graded differently or that they're going to be in some way, bullied in the classroom if they don't go along.
I don't know if it's that. I think it's they don't want to think ill of their beloved teacher and like, oh well, they didn't know, or I don't want to confront her. And but here's the thing is when I have sent books to say this is in the library or the classroom, when my friend went to her kids and saw the book and then explained it to her and talked to her about it. And the kid, without the mom saying anything, went to the teacher and explained it, and the teacher removed it from the classroom.
Oh.
And so even though I don't see anyone standing with me, they are talking to their kids and their kids are standing up. And that's where I feel the most glorious hallelujahs to empower these, like Naomi, right? I want her to be able to say, this is not okay. And she did. She knew that pin. I hadn't heard of this today. That was the first time I heard it when she said it. And I hear some things, so that's why I had to like edit it before.
Yeah.
That's parenting. I definitely feel that way. I definitely feel, especially since I just decided to run for school board, that it does put a bit of a target on my son. But I also, because I'm mostly homeschool, am, if something were to happen, it would be it. That would just be it. I would pull him out and that would be the end. He's also my kid and very he will say what he thinks. So
yes, he will.
today he ran into somebody from his old school and they were like, well, where are you? We don't see you around. And he's like, yeah, my mom hates DEI. And the kid was like, what's DEI? And he's like, oh, well, DEI is when I was in Seattle, I was told to identify as my oppressed side. And the kid's like, what? And so he just like
Brilliant. That is so
puts it out there and he's like, yeah. So he's telling these, other 10th graders, this is what DEI is. And they're like, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. It is.
Isn't that funny? It's like funny how much our kids pick up and do. Like,
yes.
Well, almost as soon as they meet someone, say, my mom gets bad books out of school. And I'm like, they're going to hate you right away. My kids have never seen the excerpts. So they can't show anybody. They're just, my mom's at Target. Do you want to hate her too?
Right.
And they don't, and then, but they pray for it every night. It's so like just in their prayers over the food, please bless, they'll get the bad books out. They feel this, but they've never experienced like how dark they are and how, disgusting. And I'm so glad for that. And they take a lot of things on faith, which is having never seen it, to keep praying for that every night,
Right.
Which is why children should not be indoctrinated at a young age, because they're so easy to accept these ideas without even having personal experience of it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
true. It's true. Let's keep going because faith is part of the next part. So yeah.
Oh, sorry,
dogs.
On the trailer?
Yeah. If we can.
I think we're at the end of it here.
Did we finish it? Oh, okay, yeah.
We did. But we can go back. Are there some key moments though you want to grasp?
Well, yeah. So no, we don't need to go into that. That's school. But I think that point, if you go back a little bit further, this part where not her, where they talk about how the schools were created to destroy Christianity. There it is. No, one.
Oops.
There we go. That's it.
Is that it?
So, okay. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have utterly red-washed education, so we don't know what creeping communism looks like.
I don't like the idea of teaching children that they're victims.
Yeah. So I think that is such a key, is that it is creeped in. It is so subtle. So if you went to people 3 years ago and said, this is what schools would look like today, they would have been like, everybody, both sides would have been like, no way.
Oh yeah.
Right. And now everything's just a little bit, but it could be so much worse. Right now, today, just now, our Utah schools voted to not repeal critical race theory. You would never have expected that in Utah
No.
from supposedly, a conservative board. But everything's okay. And also, manipulating emotions is okay. And that's what happens. I think that's why they want our children to seem like they're younger than they are. So we have schools that are bringing in, for junior high and high school, they have rooms where they can cuddle with stuffed animals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you can infantilize people, if you can make them only rely on their emotions and basically throw tantrums to get what they want.
This is where I think, I'm a therapist by trade, as everybody knows. And this is where I think the responsibility of the psychology field in this infiltration is very great and very broad, and the breadth of it is probably even unknown, because there are some things within SEL or going to a place and hugging an animal or the stuffed animal that are taught in a therapeutic setting, but that therapeutic setting isn't the classroom with all the other students. It isn't designated places. I mean, the counselor's office maybe is designated. So I think this is what I struggle with, because on the one hand, there's some pieces and components of that are used in therapy that are good interventions. On the other hand, you have people who are not licensed or trained in that field, who shouldn't be who shouldn't have to have that. They shouldn't have to have that added responsibility either. And at the same time, they're sort of being forced into these interventions, so to speak, that they're not qualified to do. They shouldn't have to learn about them because it's not the right setting. So it's almost like, some of those things they're not bad things to do. We teach kids from foster homes and from, very difficult environments that, sometimes they're, holding a teddy, bear close to you and squeezing it. You're loving yourself that way. However, that's under a contained environment where it is a 1-hour session between a therapist and a client. It does not go outside of the constraints and the boundaries of what that 1 hour is supposed to be, because we need the child to then turn off a little bit and now get plugged into something like school and get your mind off of that. We don't want you living there in that place. And they've tried to merge and meld all this together so that it's become, for obviously agenda reasons, but that's, I think, where the struggle is it's people, it's like differentiating when that's an appropriate thing to do and when it's not. And the way in which it's being used is completely inappropriate for a number of reasons. That could be triggering to a kid. You have no idea what that kid's background is. You have no idea what saying some of those things might bring up for a child. And then what do you do then? So that's the reason why we're supposed to be handling that delicately, not with a big group, not in the classroom, and not as a whole.
Well, and also leaving the classroom, because you're teaching junior high and high schoolers that they cannot handle being in class and focusing for 1 hour.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, I would not have a problem if my teenager had a stuffed animal on his bed and, had a rough day and snuggled with his stuffy, at home.
Yes.
In his own space, in his own time.
Yes.
But if you're going to learn to be a contributing member of society, then you have to learn that you have responsibilities.
Yes.
And when you're a kid, when you're a teenager in school, your responsibility is to get your work done. It is like your responsibility is to be a student.
And here's what we did with that. I used to work for a high school system out here in California. And what we did with that is we created kind of a safe space counseling center that was right on the campus. You didn't need the parents' approval or consent. You didn't need, to know, whatever. The parents didn't need to know why they were going there. And you know what we had? Lines wrapped around the school of hundreds of kids that all got excused and passes from class to be able to come in and sit for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the whole class period, and do absolutely nothing in class because they wanted to go to the care center. And the care center had no boundaries around what it was supposed to be used for. We shouldn't have even been there. And I say we, because I was a part of this. I take responsibility for my role in perpetuating all of this because I was following precedent for the field, which I'm no longer doing, obviously. So that's what we did. Imagine your child then, without your knowledge and without your consent, is skipping 2 and 3 periods of coursework every week or more. Some of them were skipping 1 period a day. So that's 5 periods through the school day that your teachers, we didn't do it at the middle school, but we did it with the high schoolers, are not in class, but they're there at the care center, screwing around, vaping, by the way, in the bathroom, and we could smell it coming out from underneath we had no recourse against that because that was an untouchable space. So you pretty much could do anything you wanted there without repercussions.
Wow.
I mean, yes.
Yeah. We don't have to imagine it because it's happening here.
Yes.
So it's really frustrating. Last one. Sorry, I'm getting frustrated because someone decided to vacuum.
Oh gosh.
Like,
okay. Do you want me to pull up the video again, or do you want to?
So no, the last one that I think is important is the infiltration of churches. But we're fighting this. We want ideology. We want religion and ideology kept out of our schools. That's a parent's job, but it's in our churches too.
Yes.
Well, it always has been. That's always been a tactic. Like, I studied abroad in Spain, and so the people began to stop believing in the Catholic Church because when Franco came in, he told the priests they had to report everybody and everything, and they did. And so it made people to lose their faith. And even when they translated the Bible into English, the king had William Tinsdale, I think it was, strangled and burned. And so it's always been a tactic to go after religion or show that, infiltrate the priests. So you can't trust your religion anymore, or the people administering the religion, or whatever. So it's not a new thing. And if anybody wants to learn from history, there are so many examples. But one of the things that I don't like is they'll use examples of people who are nutso and say, yeah, this nutso, that's their religion, so therefore the whole religion is this. And I'm just like, there are nutsos everywhere and everything. There are wolves in sheep clothing everywhere. And I don't know that you can determine if the religion as a whole has lost. I even wrote to, I don't know, I went to Turning Point, and there was this William Baxter, I forget his name, but he is the one who speaks out about the infiltration into churches. Eric Metaxas, that's who it is. And so he's like, if your church is preaching any of these things, get out now. And I wrote him and I said, that's kind of irresponsible because it could be one of the preachers, but not the whole thing that's doing it. Or it could be one of the leaders who's a nutso. And there's always nutsos. And unfortunately, I don't respect positions at all. I mean, not unfortunately, but for those who I challenge, I've never respected a position. And okay, I'm
fine.
Sorry, I'm not going to go into my religion, but I'm just saying I think this is a difficult one for people to look at, especially if you're very religious, which I am.
Right.
I think you're 100%. And I'm just going to say this one thing about that, because somebody said to me once, and this is what I think of when you're speaking about this, Brooke, is why didn't you stay and try to change the school from within? If you have everybody leaving, a mass exodus of the people that don't believe in the ideology, you're not actually changing anything from within. And it's almost like the people who, the pastor or the priest might be the only one who has these radical ideas. And now you're having a mass kind of migration out of the church when that's not necessarily how to make the change, or how to get rid of that one person, or how to figure out what people really believe. And that's, I mean, I think that's so key, because it's so much easier to just say, forget it, I'm going to walk away from this, than to say, let's find the source of the problem, or who really is, what's really
Yes.
behind this, and fix it without dumping it all, the baby with the bathwater.
Yes, that was my problem with his statement. And unfortunately, I've threatened to sue ecclesiastical leaders because I thought they were wrong. And I will go right up to them and say, I want a meeting with you. I want to explain my point of view as well. I try and do it very respectfully and with kindness and with love. But I have those conversations if I think that it's veering to a dangerous side, because we're all responsible to speak for it. And how can you know? And I hope people do the same thing for me.
Yeah.
How can I know if I'm offline unless someone
Yes.
clues me in? And so these leaders may truly believe that they're doing the right thing. And so I like to have conversations, even if they're difficult, and give people the benefit of the doubt. And it turns out that the last one I did, I was misinformed. So there we go. Good thing I was fooled. So
You know, the thing is that, like I've said multiple times, this whole, what we're in right now is this hydra where, and so as far as faith goes, you have a choice. You can stay where you are. Another thing that is really popular right now is dismantling your faith or deconstructing your faith. And deconstructing your faith is to find the things that don't really work for you and make sense of it. But the end goal of deconstructing your faith is to have no faith.
Yes.
And that is a huge crisis that people are going through right now. So the thing is that every person I've ever spoken to, except for one who, when she watched her grandma commit suicide, that was the end for her. But every person that I've spoken to who has escaped communism did so because they held on to what they believed was true. And we are losing any sense of truth when we censor ourselves, when we're afraid because, you know, the mob is going to get us, which they might, you know, whatever it is that we're afraid of, that diminishes our faith. And we don't all have to have the same faith. For me, though, if I were to give up my faith, I truly believe this, that if I'm to turn on my faith, I would lose my salvation. And I don't want to do that. And the idea that they would force our children to do it by sending them to school and saying, you know, the belief in God is pseudoscience. It's an outdated idea. Let us give you some new ideas. Instead of praying, we're going to have you breathe. And that's the kind of thing that they're doing to our kids. They're prepping them for a test. I mean, again, if anybody doesn't know, we're in Utah, right? And so people would pray before tests. When I was a young women's teacher, people would say, oh, I felt really uncomfortable or not prepared, so I'd pray before my test. Now they're being taught to breathe in and out, you know, and maybe chant something before their test, because they're being taught that all religion is the same. So, which, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. But to force it on people who don't believe that, which is what happens over and over, it's a theme in the film, is that they say, well, you can have your faith as long as it's within these parameters. And if you get out of these parameters, well, we're going to target you. So, like the cult that gets attacked in this, they didn't have proof, from what I understand and from how it's presented in the film. They didn't have proof for what they went in and did for the people, for taking the children, all of these things. They were just a weird fringe group that was outside of the parameters. Well, who's the weird fringe group now, you guys? It's us.
It's us.
It's us, whether or not we go to church or not. The fact that we are not falling down and saying, oh, you know, everything that's happening is totally justified. We're so grateful for the condition that our world and our country are in right now, because we're not saying that we're the target. Go ahead, Brooke. I see.
Yes, hello. But I wonder if the motivation for both of those things is different, because when they attacked the polygamous fringe group, I would think instead of being hate driven, it was fear driven, because it's like, oh, that's so weird. What's going on there? You know? So you've got some, an underlying sense of fear.
Yes.
But it seems like attacking us now, it's hate driven rather than fear driven.
Where'd the hate come from, though? I mean,
It
they
was
started,
taught.
but it was also fear. Those people want to kill us. They're not responsible. They're this and this and this, you know, i.e. from the people who did not take the vaccine. Okay. That's how it started. It started with those people won't wear a mask. They're hateful. They don't love us.
Well, and be afraid of them. I mean, the fear was rolled into that. Be afraid of them, and that being afraid of them because they're unsafe, I think also turned into anger. So that fear
Yes.
turned into anger and hatred, when I think it started with fear and the end
Right.
result was anger and hatred. You're killing us, you're murderers. I mean,
Oh, that's why they have the teddy bears. They're learning to be afraid of people.
yes.
They're
Yes.
teaching them to be
It's all
afraid.
they're
all
afraid, then they throw temper tantrums.
correct.
They are reversing. They're all Benjamin Buttons. We live in a world of Benjamin Buttons.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So they're reversing them and sending them back to a place where they do this, except for when they say, go out and fight. When your president says things like, what are you going to do to save democracy? Right? So our kids are these fragile little, oh my gosh, the world, I can't eat that color of food because the color yellow makes me anxious, right?
Yeah.
They're going through all, I mean, that's really what they're doing. I've seen it in school, you know, and they're just like, I can't set my phone down because I'm so anxious. And then their parents are like, isn't it wonderful? My child has X problem. And
Yes.
we are going backwards. What I say is we're throwing out best practices right and left.
Yes.
We know that the best practices is to instill grit in a human being.
Yes.
But we're not instilling grit in the human being. Instead, we're saying, oh, poor you, you're so stressed out. You need a break. I'll go get self-care.
Yes.
Self-care.
It's not really grit for me. I mean, yeah, I think I have a lot of grit, but I think it's because I have a lot of faith. Like
Yeah.
I don't fear because I trust my God. And so
Yeah.
that grit, I think, comes to people knowing, like, my favorite genre was science fiction as a teenager. So I read all of Isaac Asimov's books, like everything science fiction. It was like my favorite. But the main theme through all of it that I missed was there was never mention of a God. It was space and aliens and everything. And, you know, and I was like, how do they do that? Oh, the world is going to end. You know, it's just this whole thinking without a God that was very absent. And when you do have thinking without a God, that it's hard to have grit, especially when all the problems are presented to you. So they had to do the same thing at the same time, get rid of prayer in schools, you know, get rid of religion, make them weak so that we can take over. So
I think that's, oh, go ahead. We're going to say,
that's all.
Well, I think that that's kind of the perfect segment for the next thing that we're going to talk about, which will be going through ethnic studies. Sorry, segue. My husband said through the door. It's a perfect segue. But I think it's a good roundup, because that is the first thing that they tackle, is that belief in God is for the ignorant. Belief in God is for the weak. Belief in God is for the fragile. Even though those are all things they want to make of us, that's what they're talking about in this book. Mm-hmm. And that's what her whole film is. How do we turn, go ahead.
Here's where there's this, again, hypocrisy and clashing, because, you know, Hispanic and Latino families, a big majority of them are Catholic, and they're faithful Catholics, yet they're also considered an oppressed and marginalized group. How does that exist together? I mean, the hypocrisy doesn't work for me. That's a big part of it too.
Well, they turn Christ into something other than he is, right? I mean, there's people who they're like, Christ is the God of social justice, which does not fit.
Ah,
But
no.
that's how they do it. And that's, like I said, it's a totally different subject, but
Yes.
or not a totally different subject. It's just for another day.
Well,
You guys, yeah.
and that is like they're turning everyone into social justice to elevate the term social justice. When I put into Chat GPT, just make some questions about Martin Luther King, it said Martin Luther King was a social justice warrior who blah, blah, blah. They're making it seem like a really good thing. That was Chat GPT. That's
Right.
the AI stuff being pulled from, I'm sure it's been trained as well to spit out crap. But
Right.
it also takes into account everything in the internet that it summarizes. And so I know things are being changed along the way, but they're elevating that term.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I have really enjoyed this, and I hope that everybody will go and see Julie's film. And of course, we took it in another direction, but that's what we do. So, and but it really will show you. It'll open up. I think it'll be a huge eye opener. It's going to really show people with facts that this is what's happening, and also just what Trevor says at the end when he says, "Faith is proof, or courage is proof of faith." That is the big point, is that courage, we must have courage no matter whatever it is that we're facing. We just have to have courage to take that one more step and to keep doing what's right, one little tiny bit at a time. And what I always say, because I do believe this, in the end, we win. So maybe we personally aren't here to know it, but even if that's just our kids always knowing, or our friends always knowing, there were people who stood up.
Yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. I
Thank you so much.
appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, always.
Yeah.